powerful suffragists who have made great contributions to first wave feminism to talk about women's suffrage movement, who are responding to a great time of great oppression of women in America, and especially what can be done to cripple this oppression. Joining us first today to talk about her campaign strategies for the passage of the 19th Amendment, which would grant women the right to vote, is Carrie Chapman-Catt.
Hi, thank you for having me. Now that I'm in my second presidency for the NAWSA, I knew I needed to further my ratification efforts. This is why I launched my winning plan.
So what exactly does that mean?
What this means is that our victory depends on avoiding detours in states that are really just hopeless, while funding more promising state campaigns, lobbying for a federal amendment, and building support for future ratification efforts.
Have you made any other efforts?
I also established the IWSA for the expansion of women's voting rights around the world and the League of Women Voters to increase voter turnout among new women voters and encourage civic engagement. Kat was certainly a very interesting person to meet, but now let's meet the renowned author of The Yellow Wallpaper, Charlotte Perkins Gilman. So what do you think about all the age of consent stuff that's occurring?
It's wonderful to meet you too. I think age of consent is very necessary. The social purity movement has allowed for much progression to be made in order to abolish prostitution and promote the legal age to be of 18 years old.
I certainly agree. So what exactly motivated you to write The Yellow Wallpaper? What about this specific story did you feel was necessary to tell a mass audience?
The Yellow Wallpaper was based on my own personal experience after being diagnosed with hysteria, which prohibited my writing and labeled my feminism and social critique as symptoms of illness. It felt vital to tell the stories of women who are so often falsely mistreated medically.
That's awful. I'm so sorry you had to go through all that, but I do thank you for being brave enough to share your vulnerability with us. What do you sincerely hope comes from this short story?
Primarily, I hope for the recognition and professionalism of domestic work and support for women working outside the home to achieve economic equality. Now let's talk to Alice Paul, a very vocal leader of the 20th century women's suffrage movement, who is known for her protest tactics like picketing and hunger strikes. What is your history with the NAWSA?
So I used to be a part of the NAWSA. I led the Washington, D.C. chapter and was appointed to the NAWSA Congressional Committee in 1912. And in 1930, I helped organize the first major suffragette spectacle for the NAWSA down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C.
It seemed like everything was going great. Why did you decide to split from the NAWSA?
I was at odds with the NAWSA over our tactics, methods, and goals. So my friend Burns and I founded the CU in April 1913, but remained on NAWSA's Congressional Committee until December.
So why did you decide to start a hunger strike in prison? How did it get to this point? Did anything come out of it?
So I was unfairly sentenced to jail for 7 months at the beginning of June 1917 for some unreasonable charges, while I and 1,000 other silent sentients were picketing the White House. So in protest, I organized a hunger strike. Doctors even threatened to send me to an insane asylum and force feed me. But food simply isn't important to me. Women having their right to vote is.
We have one last question for you. Did anything come out of it?
After all of our hard work with the National Women's Party, with our militant tactics, steadfast lobbying, coupled with public support for us when we were in prison, forced President Wilson to endorse a federal women's suffrage amendment in 1918. It took 2 more years for the Senate, House, and the required 36 states to approve the amendment, but we got it done. Our final woman is someone who has been making strides specifically within women's healthcare through her advocating books. Margaret Sanger, what are your thoughts on the Comstock Act?
The Comstock Act has had continuous and irreparable damage on women's healthcare through the prevention of contraceptions. It has restricted women's choices in pregnancy and in life.
You've been a large proponent of these policies within your forum, the Women Rebel. What made you want to create this platform for women?
The main purpose was entirely for the fight of the legalization of contraceptives. I wanted to create a platform where discourse and conversation about women's rights and reproductive education could coexist in a safe and curated environment.
It has created more engagement around this topic and brought forward very stimulating literary works to arise from the forum. What quote from the forum stood out to you the most?
The sentiment I delivered at the beginning of its publication was, "Every change in social life is accomplished only by struggle. Rebel women of the world must fight for the freedom to harmonize their actions with the natural world."
That was perfectly powerful. We thank you so much for your time. And we wanted to thank all our lovely guests today for the words of advocacy, passion, and education that has been absolutely instrumental in the women's rights movement.